Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. All your printing, scanning, copying needs, Gulf Coast Office Products. Appreciate you starting your week with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Everybody kind of getting back into the flow of things this week. It was very evident coming into work that a lot of folks were headed to school for the first time in a while. Traffic was actually significant for the first time in about 3 weeks. So feels like we're kind of easing into things here. And again, fired up, you're making us part of your day. Denton Day coming up in 30 minutes, talking college football playoff to come, as well as his Washington Commanders, who are in the playoffs. Jaden Daniels, we'll see what he can do in his first postseason as a rookie in the NFL. So lots to get to over the next 30 minutes. I wrote a piece at LouisianaSports.net. It's been up there for a couple of hours there on the front page about the Pro Football Focus grades for the season for LSU. Every single Sunday after the games, I would write about those grades and who graded the highest, who graded the lowest. But the grades roll for the entire season. So I wanted to take them in their entirety and put together top 5 and bottom 5 for LSU. So I did that up on the site today. In the top 5, you've got, 3 offensive players and 2 defensive players. I'll let you kind of marinate on that, who you think probably graded out the highest on LSU's team. And the top grade was an 83.5, which is a very, very strong grade, and it was on the offense. It was quarterback Garrett Nussmeier, highest graded player on LSU's team this season. His grade was 75 or better in 6 games. He never dipped below 60, and you can probably guess the 2 games he graded out the lowest. They were actually both a 60.5 against Texas A&M and Alabama. I would suggest, I don't have this information, his grade in the first half against Texas A&M was pretty good, because LSU had moved the ball up and down the field. They did have to settle for a couple of field goals, but they did look like they were kind of in control. And then he turned the ball over far too much in the second half, took some sacks. It was not good, but he was good just about all year. Threw for more than 4,000 yards. And his highest grade of the season was actually the bowl game against Baylor, where I thought he was sensational. If you listened to me or read anything I wrote up at the site after that game, I was just like, look, that was a patchwork offense that had offensive linemen moving all over the place, didn't have its best pass catchers, but the quarterback was just damn good. And he was really good all year long. He was the highest graded player on LSU's team. And I would tell you that if LSU is going to be a championship contender next year, that's going to have to be more of the same from the signal caller at Garrett Nussmeier. Really good first year for me as the starting quarterback. For Garrett Nussmeier, 83.5, highest grade of the players graded on Pro Football Focus. Second best grade, not going to be a surprise here either. Defensive player, guy that was probably the most impactful on defense all year. If you're thinking Whit Weeks, not a terrible guess. It's actually Braden Swinson. Swinson graded out at an 83 for the season. He blossomed into the best pass rusher that LSU had. His season-long pass rush grade was an 88.6. I can't tell you all how good that is. Like 88, there are not grades in the 90s on Pro Football Focus. It's very, very, very rare. But an 88.6 for the season is awesome. And he wasn't terrible against the run per Pro Football Focus, 71.1. He had 9 sacks, which led the team, and was credited with 42 hurries on the season. I think that's awesome, and I think that's going to draw him some draft attention come spring. Number 3. It didn't surprise me because I did do these grades every week and I knew who was grading out pretty well, but this guy had a really good season when he was able to get on the field, and that was Zy Alexander at cornerback. He graded out for the season an 82.2. He was very clearly LSU's top cover man. He missed some games due to that concussion. He was slowed in camp trying to come back from the knee injury, but his coverage grade on the year was 82.4. No one on LSU's roster was really close to that. It was significant, and I think with his size, his ranginess, I think an NFL team is going to like some of the things that they saw on tape from Zy Alexander this year. So good for him. He was the 3rd highest ranked player on this LSU team. 4th was an offensive lineman. And it wasn't Will Campbell. And it wasn't Emory Jones. Garrett Dellinger was the 4th highest rated player on LSU's team, 73.5. He, based on the grades, was an elite interior pass blocker for this LSU team. His pass blocking score was 84.6. That's actually higher than Will Campbell's, who was an 80.9. Dellinger allowed 3 hurries without giving up a single sack on 290 pass attempts. He obviously missed the final month of the season. He wasn't as good in the running game, and none of LSU's offensive linemen were. He was a 69.3 grade, but pass blocking was very much his strength, and he was a really, really good player for LSU there in the interior at left guard. And then number 5, this encouraged me because this is a guy that could stick around for a little bit longer. Caden Durham was the 5th highest rated player on LSU's team among those who were significant contributors. You didn't think in August that Caden Durham was going to factor into this very much. Josh Williams returns. John Emery returns. They're both 6th-year players. Caleb Jackson was a very trendy pick to be a breakout guy. And Caden Durham was fantastic. He busted onto the scene with that awesome game at South Carolina. He forced 8 missed tackles in that game. He finished the season forcing 27 missed tackles. He busted 17 runs of 10-plus yards. And his rushing grade was 76.2. all while nursing that toe injury for a lot of the season. So the pass blocking grade was not great a lot during the season, but man, was the running production awesome. And I think Caden Durham's got all the makings of being a really high-level SEC back for the next couple of seasons. He was the 5th highest ranked player. So from 1 to 5 on Pro Football Focus, Garrett Nussmeier, Braden Swinson, Zy Alexander, Garrett Dellinger, and Caden Durham. We go to the bottom 5. I don't want to spend too much time here, but I do think it's interesting information. And once again, Pro Football Focus is not, the end-all, be-all. They don't get every single thing right, but this is their interpretation of what they watched on tape from LSU. The lowest grade starting player or key contributor for LSU was Paul Mabenga, who obviously took over for Dellinger at the end of the season. He graded 46.8 on the year. I will say this from Mabenga. He really, really struggled his first 2 full-time games. Against Alabama, his game was 43.6. Against Florida, 46.3. So significantly under 50. The Vanderbilt grade was a 63.8. That was better. And I guess the good news for Paul Mabenga, he got 438 snaps this year. That's a lot of reps for a redshirt freshman player, and he can certainly build on that. Second lowest grade, DJ Chester, 50.6. I think that's the end of DJ Chester as a center. I do not believe it's the end of DJ Chester as an SEC starter. I think Braylon Moore takes the center spot in 2025, but Chester will be in the mix to play guard. His best game of the year was the last game of the year against Baylor. The issue for him was really he was consistently graded pretty mediocre in run blocking. It was always between 48.6 and 59.8, so always in the 50s. And the pass blocking went up and down. Against Alabama, 78.6 pass block. Against Arkansas, 73.8 pass block. Those are really good scores. He also was a 23.8 against South Carolina and a 49.1 against Florida. So he's 6'6", he's 315, he's got good size, he's got a year of starting experience. I think he's a piece of LSU's future moving forward. I just think he moves off the center spot. The third lowest ranked player didn't play a ton, but did play enough to qualify for the point of this story. Sean Washington, a defensive tackle of 56, was the lowest graded there on defense. And then you go to 4 and 5 that are hand in hand, because this is something we've talked about in August. This is something we very much talked about in September. This is something we talked about in October and November. And now that the portal is open and we're looking towards the 2025 season, you can absolutely point to safety, where Jordan Gilbert was the 4th lowest graded player and Major Burns was the 5th lowest graded player. Now, Gilbert played the majority of the season with a pretty significant shoulder injury. Major Burns was playing the star position. He actually had some pretty good pass rushing grades, just wasn't great in the other aspects of the game. But Jordan Gilbert, 56.9. Major Burns, 57.6. LSU just simply needs to be better at safety. They need to be better at safety in the run portion of the game. They need to be better at safety in the coverage portion of the game. Big plays are a concern. They've just got to do a better job. And if you were listening back in the first hour, I talked about some of the visitors they've got coming in. You've already got Mansour Delane committed. You've got Deshaun Spears coming up, even though he didn't play a lot late in the season, so they've got to do something to improve the talent level and to develop it a little bit more. And that's Jake Olson's main job back there as the safeties coach, because you just got to be better than LSU was this past year. And Brian Kelly said it like on the record. This is not me sort of hypothesizing or pontificating based on what I see on the tape or what I've seen with my own eyes. This is the head coach of the team saying, we've just got to do a better job there. So the lowest 5 graded players on the team: Paul Mabenga, DJ Chester, Sean Washington, Jordan Gilbert, and Major Burns. If you'd like to read a little bit more in depth, I've got some more numbers to put behind it, or if you just would rather just read as opposed to listen to me, LouisianaSports.net. I've got a story up at the front of the site right now talking about Pro Football Focus grades for the entire season. Garrett Nussmeier, highest graded player on LSU's roster. All right, we're off and running here in the second hour of a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. We'll come back. We're 15 minutes away from Denton Day talking some college football playoff. That's all next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com. Y'all know this. I was in insurance for 7 years. It's not a super fun thing to talk about, but it can be really, really important. You hope it never is, but oftentimes it is. When's that next car accident coming? That lawsuit, cyber breach, hurricane? Do you know that your policy is put in the right position with the right market to respond to the worst day that your business has suffered through? If not, why don't you get an insurance broker you can trust? Some business owners just take phone calls. Yeah, give me a quote. Can you save me 8%? Can you save me 14%? That's one way to do it. But if you're just looking for a silver bullet based on price, the Highland Insurance Group is not it. They're going to put you in the right market at the right price and make sure that premium is absolutely considered every step of the way. But you've got to understand that your policy's got to cover the types of losses that you could sustain as a business. And Jonathan Carver and his team at the Highland Insurance Group can make sure that that is the case. Check them out online at HighlandIG.com. They're right here in Baton Rouge. No matter where you are in the state of Louisiana, you can absolutely work with the Highland Insurance Group. Just check them out online at HighlandIG.com. The Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
So I was taking a peek at the NFL receiving statistics. Some familiar names you may recall. The NFL's leader in receiving yards this year, Ja'Marr Chase, Cincinnati Bengals, Louisiana State University. Number 2 on the list in receiving yards this year, Justin Jefferson, Minnesota Vikings, Louisiana State University. Number 3 in receiving yards in the NFL this year, Brian Thomas Jr., Jacksonville Jaguars, Louisiana State University. I'd like to toss Malik Neighbors' name in the hat there because he only played 15 games, went over 1,000 yards. He finished 7th in the NFL in receiving yards this year. Had Malik Neighbors played in 2 more games to catch everyone else who had 17 games, all he would have needed was 80 yards in 2 games to get to 4th and pass Drake London, where LSU would have had the top 4 wide receivers in the National Football League in terms of yards. That is absurd. And you look at Ja'Marr Chase from Rummel and Justin Jefferson from Destrehan and Brian Thomas from
Walker.
He and Chris Hilton get me every time.
Yeah, Zachary and
They
Walker.
get me every time. Brian Thomas from Walker, and then Malik Neighbors from over in the 337, I believe.
South side.
Yeah. So it's not even that they went to like get some 5 stars from LA or Virginia Beach or something. They just went down the road. And as Nick Saban said on game day to start the season, like, you can just shake a tree and get a good wide receiver at LSU. The tree's pretty good. And Ja'Marr Chase finished with the Triple Crown. He leads the NFL with 1,708 yards. He leads the NFL with 17 touchdowns. He leads the NFL with 127 catches. There are 2 things that I want to go. Well, actually 3. The fact that Chase and Jefferson have done what they've done since going into the league has been truly remarkable. The fact that there's another duo right behind them that have done the exact same thing in Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors is remarkable. The fact that LSU has put these 4 wide receivers into the league at the same time is nuts, just as Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham are moving out. And then I always want to do this, and I'm never going to get sick of it, and my time will come in the next 5 or 8 years, we'll start just winding the clock down. And then I guess you can maybe start to look towards the Hall of Fame potentially. And I think it's reasonable to suggest that Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson could at least be in that discussion. I'm not going to put them in there right now, but it's reasonable to suggest they could reach that discussion. And then we start talking about the 0-1 Miami team, and that's kind of like the conversation I kind of like to have. But I think we need to realize that Burrow was sensational this year and is one of the best quarterbacks on the planet. He's got an offense in college that had the top 2 wide receivers in the league. I don't know. Maybe you could get somebody to tell you that CeeDee Lamb or Amon-Ra St. Brown deserves to be in that discussion. But I think if you ask 15 people within the NFL who the best 2 wide receivers in the league are, I think 14 are going to tell you Chase and Jefferson. So at a given time, you had one of the best quarterbacks, the 2 best receivers, a first-round pick at running back in Clyde, who's still in the league, and then you had an offensive line. And I will put my hand up here. Like, when they won that Joe Moore Award, I was like, yeah, I think they did a good job. But, like, Burrow is pretty easy to block for. How about the plays he makes against Georgia where he's running all over the place, slinging it down the field? Like, I think Burrow and his quick release, his pocket mobility, like, that's a pretty easy guy to block for. And it's not like there were a bunch of like 5-star recruits that were up there in front of him. But if we take a step back, Sadiq Charles was a starter in the NFL. Now he retired abruptly, but he was a starter in the NFL. Austin Deculus did start a game in the NFL. I had to look this up, but he did start a game in the NFL. He's on the Saints practice squad, and he was actually active late in this season. Lloyd Cushenberry is the number 1 paid center in the NFL. Ed Ingram is an NFL starter. Like, every member of that offensive line started in the NFL. And that surprises me a little bit. So not only, and think about LSU's history on the offensive front. Not a lot of NFL starters, not a lot of high draft picks. Now, these guys weren't high draft picks, but they've made it. When you're Pete Carroll at USC, or when you do what Saban did, or you're Bobby Bowden, or you're that Miami run in the 80s, like, yeah, you just replace the next guy. There's always another group that shows up, and you've just got a really good team. LSU's had a little bit more like peaks and valleys, but like the amount of stars that aligned for that 2,000 stars, I use figuratively, but you could actually use it in the little world of these are stars in the sport. It's just crazy that, yeah, that was the team that had the 2 best wide receivers, and it was the team that had the best quarterback, and it was the team that had the most decorated offensive line. Like, it's just crazy to think about. And maybe there are some of y'all out there that get tired of hearing about this and be like, that season was 6 years ago. They all play in the NFL. Like, who cares? We got to get back to the playoff in Baton Rouge. And I'm okay. I'm with you there. But I just never get sick of talking about what we watched over that 4-month span in 2019 into January of 2020. And I never get sick of looking up little anecdotes and little stats about what those guys have gone on to do in the NFL and look at it and go, man, they were all on the same team. And I'm not even talking about Grant Delpit and Christian Fulton and Derek Stingley and Kayvon Chason and Patrick Queen. All these guys are still playing in the NFL. Rashard Lawrence, Tyler Shelvin didn't make it, and I don't know that Jacob Phillips has had maybe the career that Queen has had, but my goodness, man. It all aligned. And it doesn't, because you sign a bunch of 5-star players, doesn't mean it's all going to align like that. I would point you to that class from 2 years ago in 2023 that LSU signed that had Shelton Sampson and Deshaun Womack and Zalance Hurd and all those guys, and none of that worked. So Yeah, LSU's got a far better chance of having all the stars align than Arkansas does. I grant you that. But this is a lot of stars aligning. It's just amazing to look at the NFL record books and think about what these guys are doing and where they came from. And it's part of what makes LSU really cool. Now, in this era of NIL, you got to pony up the dough, and you've got to make sure that athletes are going to come here because there's some money involved. But it doesn't hurt to me to look up the NFL player receiving stats and go, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Brian Thomas. 1, 2, 3. Just crazy. Now we'll see what the Bengals decide to do with Jamar Chase. My assumption is they'll pay him a ridiculous sum of money. It'll make it really hard to put a good team around Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. That's the necessary evil that you deal with when you draft great players. And the Bengals happen to draft a top 5 quarterback and the best wide receiver in the league. So you got to pay him. And you got to figure out how to put good players around those guys for less money. But that's a problem for the Bengals to deal with. Certainly not me as I reminisce about the 2019 national champs who were just taking the NFL over. Joe Burrow leads the NFL in passing, Chase in receiving, Jefferson second, Thomas third, Malik Neighbors seventh, and if he doesn't get hurt with that concussion, he'd have been fourth. And you're talking about the top 4 wide receivers in the NFL from one state and one school. It's just absolutely bananas. And somehow, some way, the Cincinnati Bengals managed to have the leading passer in the sport, the leading receiver in the sport, and the leading sack man in the sport, and missed the playoffs because they lost to the freaking Patriots in the opening game of the season. Very bad, very sad. All right, we got to talk to Denton Day. Speaking of some NFL, we'll do some Commanders talk with him, but certainly want to dive into the college football playoff semifinals. We'll do all that with Denton Day from SiriusXM's College Football Overtime when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com. Every single new purchase at Genesis comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. You listen to that? 10 years, 100,000 miles. Every Genesis purchase from the lot at Genesis of Baton Rouge, 3 years of complimentary valet maintenance. None of us like to sit there on the service aisle. You'd rather be doing something you feel is a little bit more productive. You can. Whether you're at home or at work, Genesis Baton Rouge will send someone to you. They will take your vehicle. They will leave you a car so you can continue to move about during your day. They will do the maintenance required on your car, whether it's air filter, oil changes, wiper fluid, whatever the case may be. Get that done, bring it right back to you. Your day's not disrupted at all. It's just part of the experience of being a Genesis driver. Look around on the road. You'll see more Genesis than you think. It's because when people get behind the wheel, they understand that Genesis difference. It's a luxury brand of vehicles at a reasonable price. Give yourself a shot. Go in that Genesis dealership today at Airline and PQ. Pick yourself out a new ride. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every car on the lot is online. genesisofbatonrouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Monday show is brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. No matter what industry you're in, Gulf Coast Office Products services clients in that vertical market. Trey Bill tells me that all the time, whether it's healthcare, law, whether it's banking, education, no matter what it is that you do, there are different needs that you may have, printer, scanning, copier, and Gulf Coast Office Products knows those. So if you're not sure why you have the equipment that you have in your office, maybe call Trey Beal and see if there's a better fit for you. He can certainly help you with that. And they've got a great group of people over there working with them at Gulf Coast Office Products. They can always service your equipment. They got a ton of resources, over $1 million right here in Baton Rouge in terms of equipment, great maintenance staff as well. So if you're looking for new printer, scanner, copier in the new year, Gulf Coast Office Products can certainly help you out with that. Baton Rouge Business Report, and the #1 office products distributor in the city in 2024. I've got a feeling I know how that's going to go in 2025 as well. Great sponsor of ours here at the Hunt Palmer Show, and we appreciate them for bringing you our Monday shows each and every week. Speaking of our Monday shows, Denton Day, SiriusXM's College Football Overtime with us on Mondays. Denton, how we doing?
Hunt, I'm good, man. We got our Final Four, so I'm excited about it. I don't know if we can call it the Final Four. I don't know if it's trademarked, but I'm going to keep doing it until my bosses and legal team tell me not to.
I think we can do Final Four. I'm okay with that. So we'll roll with that. But how we got there was interesting. How much credit are you giving Notre Dame for that win over Georgia? How much of it are you putting on a backup quarterback?
I'm going to give Notre Dame a little bit of credit because I actually thought Gunnar Stockton was the best thing about Georgia's offense. That particular game. Their overarching issue, Hunt, is that they can't run the football. And it didn't matter who they played. It didn't matter who was a quarterback. It didn't matter which one of their running backs were healthy or suspended, just as Georgia does. They couldn't run the football. And that was very evident. So they put all of it on Gunnar Stockton. And I actually thought he played okay. And then defensively, they couldn't stop Riley Leonard in the running game because it's not like Notre Dame had all of their Jeremiah Love goes down, so they weren't fully stacked on the offensive side as well, and they just could not stop the Notre Dame offense when it mattered. So I'm going to put that more on Georgia than I am going to say that Notre Dame got lucky.
Do you feel like Georgia has taken a step back as a program?
Yes, but in fairness, I don't think it's most programs are not going to do what Alabama did with Nick Saban for, nearly 2 decades to stay atop of the sport. So I feel like it's natural for a program like Georgia that did spend, we'll say conservatively about 3 or 4 seasons at the top. They were the best program in the nation. So now it's only natural that they took at least a small step back. I think that might be helped by the fact that everyone else can pay, at least legally now. So I think that plays into this as well. But I will say that, the program has definitely taken, at the very least, a small step back.
Let's talk Texas-Arizona State. That was the highlight of the quarterfinal round, an overtime game, a double overtime game that Texas wins. What was your biggest takeaway from that one?
Cam Skattebo should have been in New York. And I know we're way past the Heisman Trophy conversation, but it was very clear. And it's unfortunate that, I guess, for college football fans, that he is now going to go to the NFL. More likely than not. I'm sure you could probably tip a COVID year in there somewhere. I don't know how that works in 2024, but I'm sure you can get one in there. But, he was a superstar. And it was the birth of a superstar, right? He won the weekend. There was a lot of things that obviously went on that weekend, but he won the weekend. Everybody was thrilled with the guy that was puking in Raleigh on New Year's Day. It's something that we've all lived through, at least most of us have, at very different stages. But Cam Skattebo was the superstar. I thought Quinn Ewers played fine. Probably not as well as he should have, given that we got the news of a $6 million offer somewhere in NIL for him to transfer, and he looked like a $6 million quarterback on that particular day. But I thought Cam Skattebo played well, and this is kind of what we wanted out of the 12-team playoff, is to get some new blood in there to even the playing field. I don't know that Arizona State is going to be a regular in this, but it was nice to see that they, at the very least, could compete with one of the teams that was highly touted the way Texas was.
Yeah, Oregon was highly touted, and they went out and got beat by 20 in the Rose Bowl. What was the genesis of that?
That was Ohio State's defense giving I don't know if reminder is the right word, because people have been so transfixed with their offense and their offensive struggles, and it makes sense. You got Ryan Day, offensive coach. You got Chip Kelly, who leaves a job at UCLA to go be an offensive coordinator. And then the last time where most people watched them was Michigan, where they didn't score a lot. So everyone was concerned about their offense. They hang 41. They feel like that's the talk of the game, but it was their defense, Hunt. Oregon is the only team that has scored 3 or more touchdowns on Ohio State's defense. They did it again in the Rose Bowl, although 2 of them, you might argue, were in garbage time. But Ohio State's defense is legit. They got a lot of older dudes that have bought into the system, that have been with that coaching staff for a number of years. I know the transfer portal is the now in college football, but there is something to be said about being able to keep your guys for 2, 3, in some instances at Ohio State, 4 or 5 years under the same coaching staff. And you're kind of seeing that and how that works out in the favor of Ohio State. I think they're the best defense since some of those Georgia teams that we had just talked about when they were at the top of the sport. They're the most complete football team, certainly in college football right now.
What does this say about the Southeastern Conference? There's only one team left, and they've been in the SEC about 15 minutes.
Down year. But really it's a down year for most. It really comes down to the quarterbacks. Alabama had Jalen Milroe, who was not exactly great this year. He's going to the NFL draft. Best of luck to him. But you're replacing Nick Saban, so you expect a little bit of a step back. You have Nico Wyatt at Tennessee, who showed you flashes, but is not comfortable at throwing into college football windows yet. He's a gamer, but he's not comfortable there. Georgia takes a step back because Carson Beck was not as good as people thought. And then when you get to the playoff, he's not available. So if you look at all of the teams in the SEC, the common theme is there was no great quarterback this year. And it's really, really difficult to make it deep into the college football playoff if you don't have a great quarterback and you're not exceedingly great in some other position, whether it's running the football, defense, what have you. And no one in the SEC was either a great, unstoppable running team or a great, just manhandling defense. And they didn't have a good quarterback. So it's a little bit of a down year as far as the SEC goes. But trust me, you know it, I know it. They're not going to be down for that long.
I'll give you some options before I give you the question. We're talking about DJ Lagway, Arch Manning, Lenora Sellers, and then obviously Nico, and then Garrett Nussmeier. Is it reasonable to suggest that LSU's got the best returning quarterback in the SEC, or would you take another player?
I would say yes. I would say we've seen the most out of Garrett Nussmeier. You know, I love Arch the same way that most people love Arch. The story is intriguing. I don't know that I'm as super high on him as some people are. I get that Texas has to go with Arch next year. That one is for certain. But we really haven't seen him ball out against a great team this year. So I'm not like super high that all of a sudden he's just going to be this world beater at quarterback, because honestly, if he was a world beater, he would be playing for them right now, because it's not like Quinn Ewers is. I am particularly high on DJ Lagway. I think Billy Napier did a fantastic job this year, given the expectations that he was going to suck and be fired about 6 weeks ago. So I think they did a really good job. Lagway showed some flashes. I think Lenore Sellers is good. So I'd probably say like Arch is maybe towards the bottom of the list just because we haven't seen him play. But I would say because Nussmeier has shown you the flashes of being able to really go out there and chuck the ball around the yard, I would say he's number one on that list for sure.
All right, let's talk about the four teams that are left Thursday. Penn State, Notre Dame from the Orange Bowl. Indy is a 2.5-point favorite. This is the point where somebody's going to win a huge, huge game, and there's not a backup quarterback you can kind of drop it on. Who do you got in this one?
I think I'm leaning in the direction of Penn State just because I trust Drew Aller just a little bit more to throw the football. I know everybody's super high on Marcus Freeman. I did think he did a great job coaching-wise against Kirby Smart. Now, Kirby did bring up something about that fake punt situation. I don't know if you want to call it a fake punt. We'll call it the fire drill punt situation that he was told you're not allowed to do that. I do think the NCAA needs to look into that, because you can't have that kind of difference in officiating crews on a yearly basis and a conference basis. If one coach thinks you can't do that and the other one is fully convinced that you can, that is a problem. But I thought Marcus Freeman was awesome against Georgia. The problem is if Penn State gets the ball first and they build themselves a 10-point lead, you have to throw it. And they can't throw the football. Riley Leonard is a gamer when it comes to running the football. He can't throw the football very well. So I do lean Penn State, though I would find it hilarious and ironic if that game ends up going to like 6 overtimes where we're doing the 2-point conversion bit and nobody is scoring because neither team wants to win a big game.
The deal with Leonard, I could not have forecasted Notre Dame winning a game where he doesn't throw for 100 yards against Georgia. That's I mean, I guess it helps when, again, they got a backup quarterback in there, but as you mentioned, Georgia couldn't run it either. In this era of football, I thought we were supposed to be spreading it out and throwing it all over the place, and Notre Dame does the opposite.
Yeah, they did. They don't have. I mean, they have their best wide receiver might get picked up by Bill Belichick in NIL because he plays lacrosse too, right? I mean, Faison has been really good, but I wouldn't call him a top-tier wide receiver in college football right now. It's not like Penn State has one of those either, but they do have Tyler Warren. So at the very least, if you are in a 3rd and 9 and you have to drop back, you have at least one guy that we can attempt to force feed the football to. I don't know that Notre Dame has that. And like, are you going to call a quarterback draw on like a 3rd and 9 or a 3rd and 11? I would sure hope not. So it is going to worry me. Maybe they just get on top of Penn State and they never have to deal with a situation like that. But Riley Leonard is going to have to throw at some point if they're going to win a national championship. I don't know that I trust him to do that.
Texas and Ohio State from the Cotton Bowl, kind of a home spot for Texas. We'll see how many tickets Ohio State can gobble up. Buckeyes are 6-point favorites. That seems like a short number based on what we just saw. What do you think?
I did think that number was going to be around 6.5, 7.5. It opened at 4.5, which is great for me because I got it at 4.5. I was like, there's no way that line is staying the way that it is. The thing is, can Texas score on Ohio State? I think we saw them at the end of the game against Arizona State. Quinn Ewers made that throw to Golden that was really impressive, and then obviously the game-winning touchdown that was kind of a pitch and catch. Great play design by Sark, but it was kind of a pitch and catch. Your guy's open. You got to make that throw, and he did. I don't know that they're going to be able to do that sort of stuff against Ohio State, though. Their defensive line for Ohio State and the Buckeyes, they can get pressure with 4 guys, and that's such a luxury to have if you can get pressure with just 4 guys and drop 7 dudes in coverage. I think this one could end up being not a bloodbath. I'm not going to sit here and predict Ohio State to win by 20 like they did against Oregon, but I don't think this one is going to be particularly fun. I think Penn State Notre Dame might be the more fun one, at least if you're watching on the scoreboard. I don't know that the game itself will be all that entertaining, but from the scoreboard perspective, I think that one will be closer. I see Ohio State winning this one relatively comfortably.
All right, let's talk about Sunday night, 7 o'clock NBC. Pair of Heisman winners going at it. Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. Your Commanders at 12-5 in the playoffs. Bucs are a 3-point favorite. How do we feel about it?
We feel good about this one. I mean, Jaden didn't play all that great this weekend, but he also didn't play for the entire game. And there was some stuff going on there. A little bit of a left side bruise is the official word, but I feel great about this one. I mean, he needs to get on the same page with Terry McLaurin. They've been a little off ever since people started throwing around those damn graphics about how the passer rating when Jaden throws to Terry is like 140. All of a sudden, they stop connecting the way that they used to. But once those two guys get on the same page, you get Austin Eckler back. He played this weekend. I think he's going to have a bigger role on Sunday. This is not the same team that Tampa saw in week 1. This is not the same quarterback they saw in week 1. He wasn't ready for NFL windows all those weeks ago. We have seen over the past few weeks he's very ready for those NFL windows now. I think this one's going to be a fun one, and I'm really hoping Marshawn Lattimore gets to match up against Mike Evans. 1, for the drama, 2, because if Benjamin St. Juste or Michael Davis is across from Mike Evans, I might be swimming in the Potomac River. I'm not going to be watching that football game.
Look, we've watched Marshawn Lattimore just absolutely put the clamps on Mike Evans for a decade now, it seems like. So we're very familiar with that down here. And we'll be pulling for Washington for sure down here in South Louisiana. Hope the Commanders can get it done. We'll talk about it next week. Thanks, man.
I appreciate it as always, man. Thank you.
Denton Day, college football overtime on Sirius XM with us every single Monday talking some ball. All right, let's take one more segment, shut it down. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Give yourself the peace of mind in this new year to know that you're not going to lose power. Weather was real bad last night. I know that because my kid is terrified when the weather is bad, and he was terrified last night. Said there were loud noise. Like, buddy, that's thunder. It's not coming inside. You're going to be fine. Thunderstorms happen around here, and oftentimes they can knock the power out, and they can't if you've got that Generac home standby generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Neil and Melissa have been running the show for 40 years down there. Justin, their son, has kind of taken the reins. Every single Generac home standby generator that you buy from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical comes with a 7 to 10-year warranty, depending on the type of generator that you buy. They have got, at any given time, as many as 10 techs out in the field making sure that their Generac generators are up and running. They monitor remotely 24/7, 365. So if there is an issue mechanically, even if you don't know about it as the homeowner, they will at Boudreaux's Electrical. They'll call you. They'll send somebody out, get that fixed up for you. The next hurricane season is always around the corner. Give them a call at 985-397-1562. Again, that's 985-397-1562 or 225-300-9389 in Gonzales, 225-300-9389. Or I give you the easy way every day, BoudreauxElectrical.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
The Hooters College Football Bowl Pick'em Challenge presented by Yingling is underway. Make sure to check the leaderboard and your inbox to see if you qualify for the final round of picks and your shot at $1,000 cash and $200 from Hooters. Our grand prize winner will be notified January 13th. It's the Hooters College Football Bowl Pick'em Challenge presented by Yingling at 1045ESPN.com.
Monday show is brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com. All your printing, scanning, copying needs. All those office products coming to you from Gulf Coast Office Products. Anywhere you are in the state of Louisiana, they can help you out, and they bring you our Monday shows each and every week. We certainly do appreciate them. Excited for tomorrow's show. We'll have Glenn West on talking LSU basketball as Tigers head to Columbia for another game that is early on the schedule that they can go win. Just got to go do it. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Sharif Ishak will join us as the Saints head coaching search officially gets underway. Reports are the Saints have requested to interview Aaron Glenn, who's obviously still coaching. They can handle that via Zoom. Diana Rossini's also reporting that the Saints have submitted to interviewed Joe Brady as well. Y'all are pretty familiar with Joe's work. He's done a great job at Buffalo with Josh Allen this year. So that's another name to keep an eye on. And we'll continue to break down those as they pop up from the different reporting arms of the National Football League. We got one more order of business to go. That's take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it.
Alrighty, first one here. Head coach for the New Orleans Pelicans, Willie Green, said Zion Williamson participated in 5-on-5 work today, and there's a chance he plays this week. Zion will be auditioning for his next team. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. I'll
take it.
Leave it alone.
Thought you were going to say take it. My bad.
I don't think he's going to play. I think there'll be a setback, and he won't be.
There
out.
are usually setbacks.
The Pels are white hot though.
They are
2 in a row.
2 wins in a row against the Wizards.
The Wizards,
who are a powerhouse in the league.
Not a great squad.
No, they're not. They're really bad.
One of my buddies who doesn't follow the Pelicans very closely was texting the group. He's like, the Pels won 2 in a row. The Wizards must not be very good. And one of my other buddies who does follow the NBA closely is like, that's confirmed. They're
very bad. All right.
Oh gosh, the Pels, they make me sad.
Yeah, it's really
Briefly.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just another year wasted with all these young players that the Pelicans have just because of injuries. And I will say though, we are seeing Trey Murphy emerge as a star. Hopefully the Pels will. I don't think they'll trade him because he's still young and under contract. So we'll probably keep him around for a few years. So at least we have that. Next one here, former New York Jets coach Rex Ryan. This is on SportsCenter at the top of the hour. Really interesting stuff. He says he is convinced he will land the job and says he's the best candidate for the job, and also says he will end the Aaron Rodgers quote-unquote country club that's going on with the Jets, or at least what happened earlier in the year when he did not attend minicamp and wasn't really punished for it besides a fine. Rex Ryan coming back to New York. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave it.
Leave it alone.
You know who's winning on this? ESPN.
They are.
They've got a guy that's in the middle of this thing that's just popping off content everywhere. Popping off for SportsCenter, popping off for Get Up, social media, Instagram. Like he's just a content king. And that's kind of what Rex Ryan has been. Now, he had a great run with the Jets for those 2 years with Sanchez and that awesome defense with Revis and Scott and all those guys. But I don't know. I'm always hesitant of guys that leave the game for a while and then you jump right back in.
All right, last one. The Bengals fired defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo today.
They did.
They had the worst defense in the NFL. I think points given up. Dennis Allen, Bengals defensive coordinator. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it.
I'll take it.
I think I'll take that. I know that Dennis Allen is not held in the highest regard in these parts at this current juncture, but you give me Joe and Jamar and that offense. I think Dennis Allen's a good defensive mind. Now, was their defense great this year? It was not. It was not at all. But I think that the Bengals can put together a better unit than what the Saints did. Now, again, I have big concerns about that because the amount of money that Joe and Jamar are going to command makes this really difficult. And it's just part of it. Other teams have paid players a lot of money and they've still been very good. So it can be done, but you've got to have a very competent front office to do it. I'm a little concerned with Dennis Allen's drop off once the talent level got a little older, but I think he's a good defensive mind. I would not mind if they hired him as their defensive coordinator.
I think I actually might have joked about this earlier in the year when we were talking about how bad the Bengals defense was. Like, oh, maybe Dennis Allen gets fired. They can just go hire him. I mean, it's really not a bad idea. He's going to be a defensive coordinator next year, for sure. He's going to be. Absolutely. He should be anyways. I mean, if there's not a team out there that
what about this? Aaron Glenn, head coach of the Saints, Dennis Allen goes and works for Dan Campbell with the Lions.
The Aggies group back up, huh?
Oh, my God. I got to have to pull against the Lions. It's too many Aggies.
By the way, I think Aaron Glenn is an Aggie too. So it's just all these Aggies circling around.
Is that what's really turned the wagons in Detroit? A&M?
Yeah, I guess
be
maybe
true.
so. I don't know. Well, to be fair, the Lions defense with Aaron Glenn has not been really very good. They were decent this year before they got some injuries, but they overall in the last 3 years.
They're good last night.
They were very good last night, which was kind of surprising. But
it was surprising.
All right, that's it. Take it or leave it.
Also, perfect game. Announced LSU the number 2 ranked baseball team in the country in the preseason poll. Number 1, the Aggies, who are going to be very, very good. That's a little concerning.
It is.
Yeah, but we'll worry about that a different time and a different day. There's a story about that at LouisianaSports.net currently. Missed any of today's show? Catch it on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab. LouisianaSports.net's got the shows on demand as well. Wherever you find your audio, you can certainly find us. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, all your sound. Hunt Palmer Show. You can like, subscribe, rate, and review. We opened the show talking about the Saints season mercifully coming to an end and where they go from here. I talked about LSU's disappointing loss to Vanderbilt on Saturday in the second segment. You can find that wherever you find your sound. Hoops with Hunt. LSU's hosting defensive backs in the portal. Pro Football Focus season grades. Denton Day on the football playoff. It's all there wherever you find your sound. We're going to give away to Matt. He's going to drive you home on AFR. Back tomorrow, same place, same time. Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.